right, let's get on with it. So, gonna come back into our favorite guest here. How are we doing there, Steve? How you doing, buddy?
All good there, Steve. All good.
So I think a first thing to say is that that was not my playlist there. I just got to thank Steve for sharing his favourite tunes and selections with us. Delighted to have you on the Steering for Property Success Group, Steve.
Pleasure to be here, Stephen.
So lots of comments coming in from people in terms of uh, grilling you and giving you that big $64 million challenging question, Steve. But before we get into it all, it would be great if you can maybe share with the group, for those who don't know you, and quite a lot of people know you because you are the systems geek, fellow geek like myself. It'd be great if you could just share with us a little bit about what you do, your business, and what's your special Stevie Spidey sense.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So my name is Dr. Steve Day. I'm the founder of Systems and Outsourcing. Basically, we just help small business owners to figure out how to work with affordable virtual assistants, how to set up their IT, their software, make sure they've got their apps in place, what apps to use, and be able to document their work really quickly, outsource their work really effectively to basically remove themselves or yourselves from the day-to-day running of your business so you can focus on doing the most important stuff. So that is what we do. I live in Sweden. I've got a property business in the UK. I've run since 2002, and I run a business coaching business, and I have a team of virtual assistants based in the Philippines and also in the UK, and they help me do everything basically.
So thanks very much for that, Steve. Thanks for the intro. So I wonder, is there maybe a common challenge that people throw your way in terms of, so Steve, I like the sound of all of this outsourcing, but where do I start? Where would you say is the common challenges that you've come across in terms of your customers?
Probably the most common question I hear is, how do I find a virtual assistant? We've had about 1,600 responses now to the question, what is your biggest challenge? And that is by far the one that comes up the most frequently. So where to find a virtual assistant, how to find the right virtual assistant for your business, and then following on from that, what do you actually do with one when you've got one? Like what can a virtual assistant do, and how do you know what you should be outsourcing in your business? So those are the biggest challenges that people face.
Great stuff. And what's your advice? So that's great, but how do you get started, Steve? It's like it seems like the holy grail. I know that's what I want to actually do, but where do I begin?
Yeah. So when you're looking for your first assistant or your next virtual assistant, whichever, then there's a couple of options you've got when you're looking for where can you go and find someone. So the way I started out was I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where to find one. So I originally went onto a website called People Per Hour. There's also Upwork as well. So these are just out or freelancer websites where you can put an ad on and then people will respond and say, yeah, I'm interested in coming to work for you. And I did that to find my first ever PA. She was based in Ireland or Northern Ireland, and that was fine. I think I paid about £20 an hour, $20 an hour, sorry, at the time for her working with me. Unfortunately, that for me was too much money at the time. I didn't have the income to support that. So it was great having this sort of PA/VA role, but I didn't actually have the funds to pay for that sort of level. So I needed to find a cheaper way of doing it. I then looked to India as my next port of call, and I recommend you can go through these processes yourself. You don't need to, if you're not ready to take on someone else and do some of these things. So try it out with someone, say from Upwork, then try it out with what I'm going to say now, which is to use a virtual assistant agency. So these are companies that are set up. They have their own teams of virtual assistants or people that work for them. And then you just hire the people by the hour, but you say by a block of hours, maybe. I think I started on 10 hours a month, so not a lot to actually try to find someone to do, or so I thought. And then you pay them a bit less than paying someone, say, from the UK, but it's still a bit more than if you hired someone directly. So that was the second step I took towards hiring my own virtual assistant. But then I'd grown in confidence. So I'd tried this out. I sort of knew a bit what didn't work and had a better idea of what I could get someone to do. So now I felt I was ready to find somebody and actually take them on myself. And to do that, I went onto, or the website I use now is onlinejobs.ph. And on there, you can post adverts, and this is based in the Philippines. And so you're going to get Filipino virtual assistants responding to your adverts. And you can typically expect to pay roughly £3, maximum £4 an hour for a good admin assistant. And because of the cost of living over there, that's actually a really decent wage. So £3 an hour is comparable to a good wage in a company over there if someone's working at that sort of administrative level. So that way you're giving people employment in a country where they're desperate for jobs, and also giving them a fair wage, but also you're getting an absolute bargain because you're not paying the 10, 15, £20 an hour, which you'd expect for the similar level of employee or assistant if you were to hire from somewhere like the UK. So that's the journey I went through. I think it's a really good journey for people to emulate.
So now you've got, you basically know where to go and get your VA, and the process of actually starting to engage with them. But of course, and maybe I use my own journey. I cocked it all up, raised my hands, and actually maybe to share with you, Steve, how I messed it up so badly. And that was, I wanted to find, I'm going to laugh when I tell you this, a general purpose VA. Have you ever heard of a general purpose specialist? And that basically meant I just found someone. And when I found them, I didn't know whether they're going to be good or maybe not so good, and realized that actually the problem I created was I did the easy part, which is hiring somebody, but I really didn't know what to do next. Is that something that you come across within maybe your customers, and how do you solve that problem?
Yeah, I think it's a really common problem, and the problem that I faced many times is unless you're clear before you go and look for somebody what kind of things that you're going to get them to do, then you've got no chance of hiring the right person. Well, you may be very lucky, and it might just happen to hire somebody who has the skill set that you figure out you need at a later stage. So actually doing it a little bit backwards and thinking about the kind of work that you're going to get someone to do first before going down the recruitment route. Doesn't matter which path you take, if you use an agency, if you use a recruitment consultant to actually find someone for you and you pay them a fee, or if you go direct and hire someone yourself. Unless you have a clear understanding of the kind of things that you need that person to do, it's going to be very hard for you to find the right person. So that's probably the second biggest challenge that people face, is not knowing what to outsource. And you see loads of posts on Facebook groups saying, oh, what can I get a VA to do or virtual assistant to do? What should I be outsourcing? And that is totally the wrong question, and actually will lead you down a path which will inevitably end in failure, because the stuff that other people in the world need to do right now with their outsourcing, with their business, is not what's important to you. Every business owner has, or each person, every business owner have their own skill set. You are all individually good at certain things that are different from what other people are good at. You enjoy different things to other people, and your business has different needs to any other business. Even if it's in the same industry, your competitors, you're meant to be doing different things to your competitors to sort of outmaneuver them. So you need to be a little bit more savvy about what you are going to get someone to do. For example, if you see loads of posts about social media, go and do loads of social media, but are you doing it right now? And that's the second question. So when you're hiring the first assistant, I always advise that you should be hiring somebody to replace some of the work you are already doing, because that way, you already know about that work, you know how to do it. So therefore, asking someone else to do it for you is much, much, much easier. But secondly, you also means that every task you give to somebody is one less task that you are doing yourself. And that way, that each time you're outsourcing, you're getting direct benefit in terms of time saved. And that's the currency that I like to deal in, because if you can save time, then you can generate more money, because you'll have more time to do all the stuff in your business that A, only you can do, and B, will make your business more profitable, whether that's finding new deals, new investors, researching, getting up, promoting yourself, doing some more marketing, creating content, whatever it is your business needs to actually grow. You're the one that needs to be able to focus on doing that, or at least managing that being done. And that requires time. And I've read this many times, but money regenerates. Money is actually disposable. It comes back every month, whether it's from tenants, whether it's from income, whether it's from your clients. It comes back every month. But the time that you waste doing stuff, you can never get back. So really important is, it's a long way of saying, make sure you just list down everything you are currently doing right now, and do this for a couple of weeks. Don't rush into this. Get a really clear plan of the stuff that you're doing on a daily basis, and add that up. How long does it take you over the course of a week or a month? And then figure out the stuff that's really killing your time. List that down, and those are the sort of things you should be outsourcing first. And the other really important point here, and you picked up on this before, Steve, when you said hiring a general VA. The other term that you often hear is hiring a superstar VA. And actually, I've got a cringe, because in one of my first ever webinars 3.5 years ago is how to find a superstar VA. That's what it was actually titled. And I've since retracted that, because I don't believe that there is a superstar anything in the world if you're going to the general point of view. You can have a superstar at doing certain things, but you can't have what people think of that as this superstar person. They're going to come in your business, they're going to take over all your troubles and all your woes, and you're suddenly going to have this profitable business. Same as I said before, you as a business owner are good at certain things, well, so are other people. So therefore, when you're looking to hire an assistant, especially if you're just hiring one, if you go to an agency, I'll just put a caveat here. You go to an agency and you hire, say, a block of hours, and you get like 20 hours a month or 40 hours a month or whatever, then they will have different people in the team. So potentially you could give different types of tasks to different people, but you only have to deal with sort of one company. So that is the only exception to the rule. But especially if you're hiring your own person, whether that's in the UK or the Philippines, it's irrelevant. You want to find someone that's good at the stuff that's going to save you the most amount of time. And that is what you focus on first. Forget the rest of it. Forget the stuff you're not doing yet. Forget the stuff you'd like to do. And if you've got stuff that you need to do right now, but you're basically split between doing admin work and research work and social media or calls or more that sort of extrovert type work, then don't try to outsource it all at once to the same person. Choose one area, one personality type, so introvert or extrovert is a really good split. Pick those sort of tasks, so detail-orientated admin tasks. That is what you should focus on first. Get somebody to do those really well, and then think, okay, now that's taken care of. Do I need to hire somebody else in to maybe take care of the customer service or the marketing or whatever else that is? So don't try and get a superstar VA. Think about what you're going to outsource first. Make sure it's going to save you time, and focus on stuff you're currently doing first. That's my advice.
Well, that's should have come to you first, really, before I hired my first general VA. And you know that we love systems in our group. So one of the challenges I had was, well, how do I apply systems to basically help get what's out of my head into their head? And I made all of the schoolboy mistakes. Lots of video calls, lots of emails, and so forth. How do you apply systems? How do you rift systems into that piece of how to get the knowledge out of your head into your VA's head?
Yeah, so again, massively guilty of doing this all wrong. And every lesson I've learned, I've learned it the hard way, unfortunately. And I didn't have a sort of a plan to follow when I started out. I used to be a total micromanager, total control freak, really struggled to let go and to get other people to do my work for me. And when I eventually bit the bullet and got my first virtual assistant, and as I said, she was based in Northern Ireland, I was spending ages writing out detailed instructions and guides and checklists and everything, and it just took forever. And so you often end up thinking, even when you did all that, though, actually the work comes back, it's not done the way you actually intended it to be done. And the time it takes plus the work not being great, and it's just and the money paying out as well, I end up thinking it's just not really worth it, and I just might as well just do it myself. It would be cheaper and quicker. And that is the worst trap you can fall into as a business owner. If you don't outsource the right way from the beginning, you'll end up believing that this stuff doesn't work, and you'll go, all that hype on social media, it's all nonsense, and actually it doesn't actually work in practice. It's too difficult to get people to do your work the way you want it done without you having to be involved. So it is important to actually do this right, and there's a couple of simple things you can do. that will totally transform the way you do this when you're getting started. So first of all, this goes back to the point we made before. When you're starting out, if you focus on getting rid of the stuff you're already doing in your business first, then all you need to do to get someone to do that in its simplest form, obviously devil's a bit in the detail, but in the simplest form, this will massively supercharge the way you work, the way you outsource. So next time you're doing that task, you just record your screen. Or if it's a manual task and you're doing it on paper, if it's like bookkeeping, whatever, just record what you're doing. You can talk through it. You can explain what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, show them exactly what you need them to do. And then you've got then a video documenting the way you do that task. So when you give that to somebody else to do, they're just copying exactly the way you would have done it. And the real gem is that not only do they do it the way that you would have done it, because they're just following your instructions, but they'll actually end up doing it better in most cases, because they're not spinning the 50 plates that most business owners are spinning, trying to keep everything afloat. They're just focusing on the task that you give them. So even though you've only given them video saying, this is how I do it, they have the time to actually do it really well. And you can give that person as much time as they need, or you could afford to get them to do it. And when they start doing it more and more, they'll actually get better at it. And hopefully, if you've got someone who's good, will offer ways or offer suggestions of how that could even be improved. So you're improving your business processes doing it this way. So that in its simplest form, just getting out the gate, that is how I suggest and how I recommend that people get started with actually outsourcing and delegating work.
Great stuff. Steve, we've got an inbound question from one of very, very lovely business owner and lady I know actually close to me, Alex Hughes. Good to see you here, Alex. And Alex's question for you, because I did ask them that they don't let you off and give you some challenging questions because it'd just be too easy for you otherwise, is what key attributes do you look for in your VAs? That's a great question, Alex. I'm going to pass that over to you, Steve.
Yeah, hi Alex. Brilliant question. And there is no single answer to this, but there's a good way I think you can figure this out. And so going back to there is no superstar VA, there is no one set of attributes you should be looking for in a virtual assistant. And as a sort of a side point, I try and avoid the word virtual assistant whenever I think about my own staff. And I think of them as my teammates. They're my team, sorry. They are my remote workers. And the reason I try to do that is because I think the word virtual assistant pigeonholes people's abilities very quickly. And it's because of all the stuff you see on social media about our virtual assistants. They just do your repetitive work. They just do your time-consuming stuff. Well, actually, people that are working remotely are the same as people that are working in your office. They just happen to be based somewhere else. So anything that a business owner could potentially get an employee to do, that is what you could get an assistant, virtual assistant, to do for you. So back to your question, what type of attributes do you look for? And it all boils back down to that original part with, okay, well, what are you going to get them to do? So until you know what it is that you need them to do, you can't have any idea of what attributes that person needs. So when I suggest that most people start, or the vast majority of people start, especially if this is the first time you're hiring an assistant of any type or any employee, is to look at your admin work, because it's the easiest stuff to get someone to help you with. And you want someone for admin-based work, so this could be doing a bit of research for you, it could be updating your website, it could be processing your documents, checking your emails, all that sort of admin operational type of work. You really want somebody who has some tech savviness, if that's a real word. You want someone who has a high attention to detail, so they're detail oriented and they're a good completer finisher. You want someone who's organized, because that is the type of personality which is good at doing that admin. It's going to be computer-based work primarily, and you want someone who doesn't forget things and get distracted, and they can focus and just get the job done and follow your instructions really clearly. So there's a free test if you've not heard of him, a guy called Roger Hamilton, who's got the thing called Wealth Dynamics. But there's a free version of this. That is a entrepreneurial personality test. And there's a free version called Genius U. And that it's like 10 questions or something. And you basically answer the questions and it comes up with one of these 4 personality types. So I won't go into the details on how you can go and have a look yourself and research this yourself. It's totally free. And we do this for all of our applicants. And basically, the one we look for admin is steel. He calls them energy levels, the steel energy. But the idea is that those sorts of people are the right mindset, mind frame, and personality type to do that sort of detail-orientated, repetitive admin work. So that is how one of the tricks we use to be able to identify really easily is someone going to be a good fit. Because you don't want someone who's full of creativity and ideas and really outgoing and basically just wants to be in everything and have their fingers in all the pies. You do not want that for somebody who's going to basically be the operations and the backbone of your company. So that's what I would suggest you go for as your first set of attributes. Somebody with those attributes I've described before. So it's detail-orientated, complete to finisher, high attention to detail. I said that twice. And someone who's quite tech savvy and also has that sort of introvert personality type, which lends itself well to that type of work.
So maybe I just also share with you in terms of the journey that we took when we first engaged with our VA. And I can't remember whether you shared this with me, which probably would have been the case, where I'm just basically just riffing off and pretending it's something I thought of, which I often sort of nick from you. But I recall when we engaged with our first VA, I asked her, what does great look like in her world? And I'll try and paraphrase what she said to me. She said, well, it takes me 3 hours to go from home to my office. And I remember this, I really hate wearing high heels. So I said, if we could basically get you to the next stage, what would that be like? Well, I go into the office, I work with 5 different companies. So I'd like to go to the office and maybe work with one company. So that went from what I'm doing now to the next bit, if I could basically select the way that I'd like to work. Okay, that's great. So we could do that in the next, say, 3 months. Would that be good? Yes. And then the next piece would be well, how could we improve on that? And what she said was, well, actually, if I didn't have to go to the office, then it meant that I wouldn't have to wear my high heels, and that'd be great. And I'd maybe swap back in. I work for a number of businesses, but ultimately what I want to get to is, it would be great if I could work from home, so I don't have to wear those high heels. I can actually work with one business. And the way that we did this was we allocated her a project, and then as she went through and delivered on the project, which was really, really good, then we worked part-time and then moved on to the full-time. Now, I'm sure that was probably something that you suggested, but I think the piece that that really resonated with us was we don't address our VA as a VA. They're a member of our team. We call them by our first name, and we view, and I think it's really important to talk about mindset, is we view them as an integral part of our team. Whether they are based here in the UK or whether they're based somewhere else, the mindset is we don't view them as a VA, and I think that makes it the approach is very, very different. And I can recall when we first engaged with them, it took them a long time to actually engage with us in a very open way, because sometimes the culture is they call you sir, or they call you mister, and that doesn't work. We rock an 80s theme in our business. So all of those things I think that you've mentioned, I thought would be useful to sort of fill in the gaps in terms of our own story.
No, I agree with everything you said. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to add a part 2 to what Alex mentioned, and she said it was really important it's very important to onboard a VA, and many people don't want to spend this time, or it puts them off employing a VA. Do you know, maybe you want to take that one? And I've got lots of questions that are coming in. So what I'll do is, if we go through these, and I'll just triage some of those as they come in, because I know these ones are probably better coming from you, Steve.
Yeah, so subject of onboarding. So I really see it as recruitment. We have a 6-step recruitment process, but the last 2 steps are onboarding and then orientational training. So I actually split those into 2 separate elements. So onboarding in my book happens, and it's just the terminology. It doesn't matter what words you use, and I'm sure that other people use them differently, but the concepts are what are important. So for me, onboarding is what happens before somebody starts, and that is about getting everything set up and ready for them to begin on day one. So this is stuff I didn't do in the beginning. This is stuff I learned the hard way, or just I learned this was a much better way of doing it. So when I first started out, I'd find somebody and they'd start working for me, and then I would be sort of dragged away from doing my work to set up their storage drive, or to give them passwords, or whatever it is they needed to do their work. I would then be sort of dragged out here and there, and every time I delegated a task, I was trying to think, oh, what do they need to do this? And it just basically was really messy. And then on the flip side, what that actually looks like to a new starter is that you're not a professional company. And you've got to remember that every person you employ, you are in competition with every other company out there for that person. So if they're good, then you want them to stick around with your company. And this actually starts really right back with the recruitment process, about how you word your job advert. But once you've got that person through your recruitment process and you've shortlisted them down, you can, that's the one I want. You want them to stick around, because that time and the time and energy you're going to put into bringing that person on, train them up, getting them into your culture, and really becoming a productive member of your team, you don't want to waste that, because that is one of the biggest costs to any business, is the replacement of staff, both in time and also in money. So those the first day is where that all starts. After the job application, that's where it really starts, but first day is when it all starts. So having a list of the stuff that you're going to set up before your virtual assistant or your employee starts with you is super important. So the things that I would consider are, how are you going to share passwords with them? So I use an app called LastPass for doing that. Where are they going to store the work that they save? So is it going to be in Google, Dropbox, Microsoft? How do they need an account set up? Avoid using their personal accounts, because that means that they own the work, and therefore if they go and they delete their work, you have no control over that. So do that. Then you also need some way of delegating work to them. So I would suggest using a task management app. Like we recommend Asana, but also Trello or Monday or ClickUp. What, it doesn't really matter what you're using, but using a task manager to delegate work rather than email, because email's super clunky and it's messy, and you end up with threads, and you can't prioritize work, and it's just an absolute nightmare, and it'll cause you more stress than it's even worth thinking about once you start actually growing a team. So using a task management app to actually allocate work out. And then are they going to do any screen recording? So I recommend you do all of your, not all of it, 90% of your communication via video, whether that's you delegating the work out, as I described it earlier, or whether that's you actually just having conversations with people. When people are working remotely, actually booking meetings all the time and having that nice one-to-one interaction like me and Stephen are doing now isn't actually always the most productive way of working. Recording video, sending it over, then recording a video back, sending it over, that asynchronous communication is much more effective, both in terms of actually just the productivity, because you just crack on with stuff when you're waiting for replies and stuff, but also it keeps those meetings much, much shorter, because unless there's a need for a conversation, the conversation often just drags out what could be a very quick 1 minute video, 1 minute back, done, 2 minutes. No meeting is ever 2 minutes, whereas actually the core information you can get really effectively. So having these things set up, so your cloud storage, your task management, your screen recording, and your sharing of passwords, the key things to get ready and understand before you really start with somebody. This may all be a bit sort of overwhelming, and I don't, like you said before, Alex, that this may put people off. So if you're at that stage of thinking, look, wow, that all sounds like far too much to worry about, then at least just do one thing, and that is to get a decent task management app to delegate your work out, and make sure you understand that where they're going to save stuff, so that when they give their work back to you, that you have access to it even if they leave. So there's the two things I would recommend keeping right. So there's your onboarding in my book. So getting those core things ready to go, and when they start working with you, then you have it all ready. The second thing is the orientation, or the training part. So you need to have a means of explaining to them how you want them to use all of the apps in your business, because you don't want them doing something in one way and you doing something in another way, because otherwise, again, it gets really messy. They start saving stuff to one folder when you wanted it in somewhere else. If they're emailing you with questions when you really wanted it in your task manager or in your Slack channel, whatever, or if they are just working in a way that isn't the same as other people in your business, it can really get messy and just cause a lot of problems. So thinking about some basic training, and if you haven't ever done this before, you've got two options. You can either sit down and think really hard about how you're going to work together, record a bunch of training videos, and then have them ready for day one. Brilliant. That's sort of like the gold standard. But in reality, that rarely happens. So what I'd recommend you doing, similar to how you delegate work out, is that when you get this new employee or virtual assistant into your business and you start doing some training, because maybe you don't even know what the training is that you need right now, or maybe you don't even know what the onboarding is right now. So you learn this stuff as you go along as well, unless you've got someone giving you a plan to do it, and this is how you're going to do it. And that's what our Systems for Outsourcing program is all about. But if you're doing this yourself, then you might figure some of this stuff out as you go, and that's totally fine. That's just the reality of it. But when you do figure it out and you have that conversation, so you get on your Zoom call and you say, this is how I want you to do X. So this is where I want you to save the work. This is how I want you to work in a task management, whatever it is, record it. So you have that conversation, record that meeting, and the next time that question comes up with your next member of staff, because your first assistant will leave, like inevitably. It may be tomorrow, it may be a month, it may be 6 months, maybe 2 years if you're lucky. They may stick around for long term, if you're very, very lucky and you do well. But the likelihood is, first person you hire, you're going to make lots of mistakes. You're going to either hire wrong or manage wrong or just get wrong expectations. You're not going to be a good fit. So whatever the reason is, or they're going to be offered another job with a company that actually had all this stuff in place and looks more professional. But the next time you'll be ready. And the next time you'll have all this stuff ready because you record yourself when you're doing it with your first one. So therefore, next time you will look far more professional, be far more prepared. And that is the reality of it. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. And I didn't make that up. Was it Ford that said that? I think possibly. Anyway, and so the point is, the best way to learn is either you follow someone who's done this before, or just get stuck in and learn from your mistakes. And that's the way I learned most of this stuff. I've had brilliant mentors, brilliant coaches, brilliant courses, but a lot of this stuff that I've just gone in, had a go, got it wrong, made my mistakes, and then learned from them.
So maybe just to share and tie off some of our own experiences here. One of the things about using recording a video is, number one, if you don't know what it is that you're actually explaining, guess what? You're going to struggle to record the video. That's number one. So therefore, it forces you to think through what it is that you're saying. The second thing is, what you tend to find is that, God, it's a very, very long video, and you're training yourself actually to shorten that information. And the third part is, because you're not interrupting them, because they're going to stop what they're actually doing, they can consume it and at their convenience and then respond back to you. And by just those three things, I often use the 80s wax on, wax off. You've got to practice that, and after a while, what you can basically do is just knock it out of the ballpark. You can just begin to delegate tasks, as opposed to we've got to wait for that person to come on, have a video call, and then explain all of that stuff with them. So that makes a lot of sense. This leads actually really nicely into one of Richard's questions. By the way, Steve, I'm not sure whether you can see this, but we've got a flurry of questions coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and knock some of these out, because otherwise...
Right, I'll do quick fire answers then.
Okay. So question, when you get virtual assistants, Steve, this is, name drop here for Richard Fay. So Richard, our question is, when you get a virtual assistant videos explaining what you need or how it's done, do you research video assistants who are highly skilled in those areas? I think I know what the answer to that question is, but over to you, Steve.
Just trying to understand what the question is. So is the question, do I get a video editor to edit videos for training?
When you get a virtual assistant's video explaining what you need, videos of how it's done, and then do you research virtual students who are highly skilled in those areas? I guess you're recruiting a specialist on a particular task or area that requires that speciality. So a good example would be a video editor for video editing tasks.
Yeah, I think I understand. So if the question is, how do I hire experts, so for specific skills, then I would, if it's something I know nothing about, so we hired a graphic designer for doing all of our brand guidelines and doing a lot of work on our courses and our websites and logos and everything like that. So I researched, how do I hire a good graphic designer? What questions should I ask a graphic designer before I take them on? How should I work well with a graphic designer? And Google is the gold for this. And then through that research, then I created a plan of how I was going to create a recruitment application process. I then tried it out, got the results. If it didn't get me what I wanted, I tweaked it, and then I got exactly what I wanted. So it's a reproducible system, so then I can hire graphic designers really easily. So it doesn't matter what it is. That's how I do the hiring bit. If what you're asking, just to be clear, if it's about, do I get somebody to edit the videos for the training that I do within the internal for my staff, is absolutely not. I record a video as quickly as humanly possible. I make lots of mistakes. I just make sure that it makes sense. I do not polish it. I do not remove any editing unless it's totally confusing. I give that to the person. I let them run with it. If there's lots of questions coming back, I might have to think again, but most of the time it's enough to get it started. Once that person's done that task a few times, I ask them to re-record a better version of the video.
Great stuff. And so moving on. So another really good question that came in was from Matt Yules. So Matt's question was accounts, such as Xero, finance package. How do you de-risk yourself using a VA, as they would have access to your account numbers and customers' details?
So part of this question is about GDPR, about sharing of confidential information outside of Europe, or within Europe without having things in place, I think. And part of this question is about trust and letting go, and about access to various apps. So quite a few different elements to this. So first of all, if you have detailed client information within an app, and you are then sharing that with a member of your team or contractor or otherwise, then you need to make sure that you aren't in breach of GDPR. So you need to make sure you have the correct things in place. I'm not a lawyer. You just do some research on this and you can get good legal advice on this. But some of the things I do, for example, I get them to sign a data sharing, a privacy agreement, which is basically outlining what they can and can't do with that data. I don't allow anyone outside the outside the UK to save anything locally. I also restrict who has access to what, so not everybody in my company can see everything. It's very much on a limited basis. With regards to my accounts, I would only give access to my Xero to somebody that I had some trust in. It doesn't matter if they were from the Philippines or the UK, if they're an employee, whatever. You've got to learn to let go. You've got to learn to trust people. And you do that by starting out on things that you do trust and building that confidence up as you go. And then when you get to a level of trust with that person where you think, I'm okay with sharing my bank details with that person, then that is when you take that person on. If you are the type of person that would never feel comfortable with doing that outside of the UK, then don't. Then get a PA for doing that small part, for the bookkeeping, for your accounting type stuff that's within the UK, somewhere you are comfortable. So everyone has their own level of confidence in doing this, and also their own, what they're willing to let go of. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. You've got to choose the right person that you can do this to, because if you don't, you're stuck doing it yourself, and therefore you're wasting your time doing stuff that other people can do. So it's more important to think about who you would get this to do, would be confident or happy to share this information with, and then get that person. I don't know if that helps.
Well, that was a question and a half. Also, one of the comments that Alex had mentioned is that they need to be AML registered as a VA. I don't know what AML registered means. Alex may want to chime in with that one, and we'll just stick that into the actual post as well. I'm going to keep going through, and the next question was, Sharon Griffiths, thanks.
Anti-money laundering.
Sorry. Suddenly went through the acronyms and completely forgot that.
It will depend on what they're doing, obviously, and what involvement they have and what access they have to. So again, it's a case of depending on exactly what you're going to be outsourcing. So for example, my zero elements of my business are done by my PA in the UK, as an example.
So one of the areas that we're sort of using at the moment is that we really have challenges with our sort of accounting. So we've broken it into two parts. One part is around actually using Receipt Bank, where our VAs are either taking digital subscriptions, monthly subscriptions from our email, getting it into our receipt bank. So then, or maybe I'm just physically scanning some of those receipts as I get them and come in and get into the receipt bank. They can then basically match that up to the actual payment source, and then we just get our accountant just to do the last bit in terms of the connect it with our finance package. So again, it doesn't
So
have
do you
to
not
be.
use Zero then?
We don't use Zero. We don't use Zero because the actual accountant doesn't use Zero. They're using cash flow, but
Okay.
it's something we're moving. So it's not to say it's one size fits all. It's all or
No,
nothing.
not at all.
Yeah,
Just with so the way we do it, we don't use Receipt Bank at all because I found that Receipt Bank's great when you've got physical receipts you want to scan and come in. That's where it's most powerful, and it does. I'm sure it has features that I'm not aware of, but we've never found the need that all of our transactions go through our main bank account, and therefore they all show up on our bank feed, which goes into our Zero account. And once you've gone through that process for 2 months, you've reconciled 90% of any transactions, and therefore the bookkeeper can do it without any input. So I never found any need for anything else than just using, whether it's cash flow. I don't know the particular cash flow, but I imagine it's similar to Zero. So just basically it's something that goes to your bank statement, and then you reconcile each thing. And most transactions in most businesses are pretty, most online businesses are pretty recurring. It's when you've got property, for example, and you've got lots of receipts coming in from different areas, that's when something like Receipt Bank would definitely come in to its own, I think.
great stuff. I just wanted to give a name drop to Sharon Griffiths. Sharon says with super calm. That's because we're in the Zen zone and we've been listening to some of Steve's playlist on his tunes. But we're doing, I think, a pretty good job. I'm going to basically riff back into some other of the questions that people have asked Steve. I'm mindful that we're at 12:17. Probably go for another 5 or so minutes, and this gives an opportunity for those who are joining us online to ask any more of those challenging questions, because you don't want to. You want to give him a really challenging one. At the moment here, I don't think we're really taxing Steve here. Trusting people to do my work for me. That's one big one that often
Cool.
people
Yeah,
have
that is
issues with.
one of the other biggest ones we see time and time again. And as I mentioned before, that is something that I really struggled with, keeping hold of everything, because just trusting people. And like, for me, it was trusting people to do it good enough. That was my trust issue. It wasn't really a worry about being robbed or being hacked or anything like that. That wasn't actually for me the biggest worry, but I know that is for some people. But for me, it was about trusting them to do the work good enough. And the way I overcame that was to start using video to record what I did and get them to then copy that and then just do it and get it out there. Start off. So we have the 4S's for a start. So short, simple, serene, and supported. So make sure the first tasks you outsource are short. They're simple, so you're not going to struggle to actually get them outsourced. They're serene, and that's the most important one in this trust issue, is that when you give someone a task and it doesn't go quite the way it was planned, it's not going to be business critical, so you're not going to get super stressed about it, and therefore you can let them make the mistakes, and then you can learn to trust by them getting it right. So, and then the last S is supported, so make sure you have time to support people. But in this instance, we're talking about trust, and the best way, I know this is sort of sounds maybe like I'm trying to get out of this, the best way to build trust with someone is to start small, so short, serene, and simple. Start getting work done by them. When you see the results come back in, and when you tweak that process, and now you have something that works, that's when the trust builds up. Trust, and the second thing about trust is you need to have, in my opinion, weekly one-to-ones with every single member of your team, if they're a contractor, part-time or otherwise. And during those meetings, your job is to listen to them, hear their concerns, and then you can then build a relationship, build rapport, and with a relationship and rapport comes trust.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think also if you maybe walk a mile in someone else's shoes, if you were actually, or I won't again use that phrase, your VA, but a team member that's on the other side of the world, you basically want to get plugged in and know what's going on within the business. And by having those weekly reports, it just builds that rapport, that cohesion. I think that makes a huge difference as well. And also just
Yeah.
really keep it short and sweet, because ultimately there's probably a lot of things that you're introducing into your workflows. You've got to practice, and you know what? When we first started, I stank. I was really rubbish at that. But the more you practice, the better you get grounded at this. And also, it's a two-way relationship. It's not always you suck, or maybe it's that actually they're improving on the other side. But it's actually a collective team effort. So I think makes a huge difference. I think also maybe bringing in the help piece, the outsourcing part, in terms of a little bit about what we do here within our program within CRM for Property Success. So we have what we call the holy trinity of pieces that you've got to get into place. So there's the system, and in our world, it's the CRM. Now, if you don't have a system, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be disorganized. And then you've got the framework, and the framework is the thing that you do every day. Whatever the process you're going to be taking. If you don't have a framework, you're going to be winging it. And the third part, and again, I riff back to what you were saying, Steve, about help. You've got to get stuff off your plate. You've got to be able to scale. Because if you don't let go, because only you can do it, only no one can do it as well as you can never get that time back. But actually, that help is really, really important. And again, it comes, I think, back to the Trinity, which is there's help, is getting started, taking those initial steps, having a framework, having a program, and really how can you basically start getting stuff off your plate? Because until you get stuff off your plate, all your time's going to be taken on with all of that low admin stuff. And if you're not getting that off your plate, it's just going to eat up your day. So I think both you and I, we've known each other systems geeks now for many years. Doing it maybe not so well to begin with, but as we've gradually adopted that way of thinking and doing things, it's really transformed our business. I'm not sure whether it's the same with you, Steve.
Has it transformed my business? Yes. Transformed my entire life. If that was the question. So I've gone from being as I said before, micromanager, going down to site all the time, going to my properties, basically doing everything in my business doing it all remotely, and now spending the vast majority of my time focusing on the stuff that I love to do in my business. I still work hard. My business is growing. I don't pretend that I take holidays every single week, but I can if I want to. I take every Friday off during the winter to go skiing, for example, because I can. And then I work hard because I want my business to grow. So I enjoy work because I actually now do the stuff that I love to do. So I would feel empty if I didn't, and that's just who I am. But not everyone's the same. But that's who I am.
I totally agree. I'm just thinking, actually, Steve, some of the things that maybe what we do as systems geeks, and maybe just a bit of a backstory in terms of how you and I met. I can remember many years ago. I think it was back in November 2016, and you tap me on the shoulder and say, "Do you know about CRMs?" And I'm kind of looking around my shoulder. It says, "Did you talk about CRMs?" And it says, "Yeah." Could we talk about systems? And then likewise in terms of VAs and outsourcing, how I got it wrong, and then I basically found your program as well, and that's really transformed what we're doing in our business. One of the things that that we are big fans of in the CRM for Property Success group are takeaways. And what I really wanted to maybe share with the community, particularly those in my group as well, is if there's a takeaway that you could maybe share with us. And I think one of the easiest things to do is, if you're enjoying the conversation that we're having today, if they are addressing some of those challenges that you face in your particular business, then the easiest thing to get more of Dr. Steve Day is to go to one of his workshops. All of the details are in the links down below. He basically runs one of these monthly workshops for free.
I'm actually doing a one on Monday for my birthday. I'm throwing one out there. So I decided to ignore Black Friday this year, but I'm going to instead do a training event on Monday instead. And so basically I'm doing that. So that would be a really good opportunity. So I'll share a link with that. It's not live yet. So I'll give you the link, Steve, and you can share it out. So yeah, that would probably that's the quickest way to come along and go into a lot more detail on the stuff that we've been covering today.
So number one, if you want to join Steve on his birthday and learn a load of good stuff along the way, I'll get the link and I'll put it I'll put it into the post down below. So that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway is if you fancy a bit more systems around a workshop that we put on, there's a link down here below as well. And as you're already in the group, if you look at the top of the group, there's a little banner. Feel free, as you're already here, just to download the CRM Property Success guide. What I really wanted to make sure is that everyone who's coming onto the actual live stream today, and we really thank you for your time and all of the great engagement and the questions that are being shared, is that number one, it's all great listening to all of this stuff, but you've got to basically get out there and do it. And it all starts with a little bit of wax on, wax off. You've got to practice your moves, whether it's around systems or whether it's around outsourcing. And even systems geeks like us, we got it wrong first time round, but it's around sticking and practicing, on those things that really matter. And maybe I share one analogy actually with, again, I'm sure this is one of these things that Steve, you and I would have chatted about, maybe over a drink in a pub when we weren't in these situations, whereby, so the analogy goes like this. So you have a teacher in a room, and they've got 4 equally resourceful, equally intelligent students, and you give them a piece of knowledge, and that knowledge might be, and is, as we're in a group around, say, property, to find a particular piece of property. So here are the 4 students, and they could go away and work very, very hard at them. But which is the student that's going to basically come up on top? And I think, I'm not sure whether this came from you, whether it was from me, or stuff that we chatted about, and it will be the student, rather than he have to go and put the time in to go and raise a school, a team of mini-me's, or to basically grow your staff. Because once you've done that, then your staff can do all of the stuff that you don't need to do. The bit that you should be focusing on is the bit that no one else does as well as you, that you're uniquely positioned to do. All the other stuff, just get it out there. And leading on to that is, I think, learning from yourself, Steve, is it's so important to understand how to let go to enable for you to be able to scale your business. Because if you don't, then no matter how hard you work, you're always going to be working in the business rather than on the business. What are your thoughts, Steve?
I agree. So yeah, I think you've summarised a lot of what we've said earlier. That getting someone to help you is essential. It's not only nice to have; there is no other option. And if you want to have a business which gives you a lifestyle, it doesn't even need to be some fancy Ferraris and yachts and all that malarkey. Just give you a lifestyle where you can pick and choose when you work. You either have the flexibility to work when you want, and to be able to do that, you can't be the person that is doing the core repetitive or the core operational tasks in your business. And so you have to have people there to keep things ticking over in your absence, but ideally not just to keep ticking over, but keep growing. But baby steps. If somebody is there, fielding your inbox, making sure that people are getting replied to. If somebody's there, just making sure that your clients are served in the way that you intend them to while you're away, that you're not coming back to a mountain of stuff that you really should have been doing yourself. If that's off your plate because you've managed to outsource the core operational function of your business, then you can choose what you do with your time. I think that's the big take home from this. And the one thing that I had to learn was that I had a business which I could run from anywhere, but I was the one running it. So I was on holiday, on the beach, on the mobile phone, dealing with problems. I was on my laptop every morning with my wife and my son were by the pool. And that's actually not what I wanted from my life. I do want to work hard. I enjoy business, but I want to be able to take real time off and I don't have to think about anything and then not come back to a mountain of mess because I've been away. That's for me has what outsourcing, what creating systems, and what using affordable virtual assistants has given me. And that to me is priceless.
And I'm hoping that today's session for those who are actually watching is, well, that's all great, but how do I get started? So again, I'm somebody who's gone through Steve's program. So we basically eat the food that we serve over here, and he's just a super walking oracle of knowledge around everything to do with outsourcing. Also, he sometimes gets some of my 80s pop trivia jokes, but really do, if you have an interest in terms of what we've covered off today and you want some more, go along to his workshop. Ask him some challenging questions for his birthday because he's always working very hard. And with that in mind, we're coming to maybe the close to our stream today. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Remember, you're going to walk away with a bunch of goodies here: the workshop for outsourcing, the workshop for CRM, and there's also a guide at the top for CRM. What is it all about? Can I understand where to get started? Then do come along to our workshop or just read the guide. But so Steve, I just wanted to say thank you very much for answering all of these questions, for sharing your knowledge and your insights. I hope you've enjoyed the session today, and thank you also for sharing with us your playlist as well. I did like your tunes.
Yeah, my pleasure. And just to give you a 2-minute recap, not recap, but some of what you can expect on Monday if you do come along, if that's okay. So on Monday, I'll be talking about how to hire virtual assistants for around £3 an hour, how to do that in roughly about 3 hours, and hire as many as you want for about 60 quid. I'll also be talking about how to quickly document any task in a couple of minutes. We touched on that today, but I'll go into more detail about how you do that and how to again get that work actually outsourced, and to make sure you're actually finding the right person for your business, and also go into more detail about how to know exactly what you need to outsource right now, so you're not outsourcing the wrong stuff and ending up in that trap most people are. And then I will, because it's my birthday and it's the back end of Black Friday, I will, if you are interested in getting involved at the end of the training, so I'll do the training, you're going to get all the value. And then if you're interested, you can stick around and hear about how we help, and I'll be making a nice birthday offer. But if you're not interested, that's cool. Just come along with the free training. If you are, there's an opportunity to get involved for a bit less than you would normally.
Great stuff. My birthday.
And I'll share the link.
My birthday's already passed, so I can't offer you a session to come to our October session, but we've got one in January, so we passed on for November. What is it that we do within our program? Well, if you come along to the actual workshop, it's the 10 steps that we went through to basically getting your CRM into a much better place to help you, number one, streamline and structure your deals to close them much faster, and also making sure that you've got the 3 things that we talked about: the actual system, which is your to prevent you from getting overwhelmed; the actual process, that's the framework that you follow, the stuff that you do every single day; and lastly, one of the reasons why I really wanted to invite Steve to this session is getting stuff off your plate. And that's really, if you want to scale and grow your business, you're going to need to be able to get that stuff off your plate, and outsourcing is the way to go and do that. So with that in mind, thank you very much for joining us. Do come along. We're going to have some more of these special Ask the Experts to come along in our session. And again, Steve, thank you very much. Give everybody a wave and have yourself a super day.
Just to let you know, I think I've just had a ping to say I think the registration's live from Mika, so I'll get that link out right now.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.